The endless void of space stretched before Captain Reed as he stared through the main viewport of his research vessel, the horizon. Stars twinkled in the distance, normally a comforting sight during his solo research missions. But today, those same stars seemed to mock him as warning lights flashed across his control panel. Engine temperature critical. Life support systems compromised. Backup power at 47% capacity, the ship's computer announced in its emotionless voice. Reed ran his fingers through his short brown hair, leaving it messier than before. He had been studying unusual radiation patterns in this unmapped sector when everything went wrong. The solar flare had appeared without warning, far more powerful than anything his instruments had predicted. Now, his small research vessel drifted helplessly, its engines burned out, and most systems failing. "Computer, run diagnostic scan on remaining functional systems," he ordered, keeping his voice steady despite the situation. Panic wouldn't help him now. 6 years of space exploration had taught him that much. The computer displayed a short list on the main screen. Life support would last another 48 hours at most. Communications were intact, but he was far from any regular human trade routes. His food and water supplies would last 2 weeks, but without working engines or life support, that didn't matter much. Reed checked his location again. He had pushed far beyond the usual boundaries of human space for this research mission. The nearest human outpost was at least 3 weeks away at full speed, and his engines weren't even working. He looked at the small photos stuck to his console, the Horizon's crew during their last group mission. Now, as a solo researcher, he wondered if volunteering for this mission had been wise. But the chance to study deep space phenomena had been too tempting to pass up. "Computer, begin recording distress signal," Reed commanded, straightening in his chair. He might be in trouble, but he would maintain his professionalism until the end. Recording started. "This is Captain James Reed of the Terran research vessel Horizon. We have suffered critical system failures following an unexpected Class X solar flare. Current coordinates are Sector 7 Delta, Quadrant 19. Engines are non-functional. Life support systems compromised. Requesting immediate assistance from any vessels within range. Repeat, this is Captain James Reed." He recorded the message 3 times, following standard protocol. The computer began broadcasting it on all emergency frequencies, including some older ones that predated the standard communication channels. Reed had insisted on keeping those old frequencies active, another habit from his years of exploration that might now save his life. Hours passed slowly. Reed worked methodically, trying to repair what he could. He sealed off the damaged sections of his ship to preserve air and warmth. He double-checked his emergency beacon, making sure it broadcasted at maximum power. He even attempted to restart the engines twice, though he knew it was futile. The stars continued their silent watch as his ship drifted. Reed kept himself busy with system checks and repairs, refusing to dwell on the increasingly likely possibility that no one would reach him in time. This far out, most ships wouldn't even detect his signal. As the 24-hour mark approached, Reed sat in his captain's chair, reviewing his research data. If these were his final hours, he would spend them doing what he loved. The radiation patterns he had been studying were fascinating, possibly evidence of an unknown type of stellar phenomenon. He made careful notes, hoping that even if he didn't survive, someone might find his research useful. Warning: life support efficiency dropping. Estimated 36 hours of breathable atmosphere remaining, the computer announced. Reed nodded calmly. Acknowledged. He took a sip from his water pouch and continued working on his notes. In the vastness of space, the Horizon's distress signal traveled outward, carrying its message of hope across the empty sectors. Unknown to Reed, those old emergency frequencies he had insisted on keeping active were about to prove their worth. Far beyond human space, something was listening. Something that would change not only his fate, but the relationship between two civilizations forever. Captain Lyra stood on the bridge of her ship, the Star Weaver, her tall figure reflecting the soft blue light from the control panels. Her skin gave off a gentle purple glow, a natural feature of her species that brightened with interest or excitement. Right now, it was glowing brighter than usual. "Captain, we're picking up an unusual signal," her communications officer reported. "It's coming from an unexplored sector, using some very old frequency patterns." Lyra moved closer to the main display, her four-fingered hand touching the screen gently. "Play it," she ordered. The calm, methodical voice of a human filled the bridge. The message was simple and clear, describing a ship in distress. What caught Lyra's attention wasn't just the message itself, but the way it was delivered. No panic, no desperate pleading, just clear information and coordinates. "It's a human vessel," her first officer, Tren, said with obvious disapproval. "We should ignore it. The High Command advises against contact with lesser species." Lyra's skin rippled with subtle patterns of light, a sign she was deep in thought. The Axorans had avoided contact with humans for decades, considering them too primitive and unpredictable. But something about this signal was different. "How far?" she asked. 2 hours at standard speed," the navigator answered. "But Captain, First Officer Tren is correct. Helping humans goes against." "Play the message again," Lyra interrupted. She closed her inner eyelids, focusing on every word. The human captain's voice remained steadied despite his dire situation. Professional, controlled, very unlike what she had been taught about humans. "Check our research databases," she ordered. "What do we know about human survival times without life support?" Her science officer quickly pulled up the information. "Their bodies are surprisingly resilient, but without proper atmospheric conditions, they survive no more than 3 Earth days. This signal indicates they have less than that." Lyra's skin pulsed with decision-making patterns. "Plot a course to their coordinates." "Captain." Tren stepped forward, his own skin flashing with warning colors. "The High Command will not approve. We're already carrying sensitive research data. We can't risk." "The High Command also teaches that advanced civilizations have a duty to preserve life," Lyra countered. "Or do those teachings only apply to species we approve of?" The bridge fell silent. Her crew respected her, but this decision challenged thousands of years of Axoran policy. Humans were seen as dangerous, unpredictable, and far too young as a spacefaring species to be worthy of direct contact. "What if it's a trap?" Tren asked, his voice softer now. "Pirates sometimes use distress signals." "Pirates don't usually send their distress calls using frequencies that went out of date 50 years ago," Lyra replied. "And they certainly don't maintain such composure while doing it." She moved to her captain's platform, her long fingers dancing over the controls. This human captain, whoever they are, chose to face death calmly while still performing their duty. That deserves respect. The Starweaver changed course smoothly, its advanced engines humming with power. Lyra watched the sector map, noting how far the human ship had ventured from their known space. Most humans stayed close to their established routes, but this one had pushed further, seeking knowledge. "Begin preparing our medical bay," she ordered. "Download all available data on human biological needs, and run simulations on atmospheric compatibility between their ships and ours." As her crew hurried to obey, Lyra studied the continuing distress signal. In all her years of deep space exploration, she had never directly encountered a human. Her people considered themselves far superior, with their advanced technology and evolved social structures. But if humans were so primitive, why did this one's courage and dignity seem so familiar? "Stay alive, human captain," she murmured to herself, her skin glowing with determination. "You've managed to intrigue an Axoran, and that doesn't happen often." The Starweaver accelerated through space, while behind them, the High Command sensors would already be noting their course change. Lyra knew there would be consequences, but sometimes doing the right thing meant breaking the rules. The horizon drifted silently in space, its hull dark except for the blinking of emergency lights. Inside, Captain Reed checked his oxygen levels again. Less than 20 hours remaining. He had just finished recording what he thought might be his final log entry when the ship's computer suddenly came alive. Alert. Large vessel approaching. Unknown configuration. Reed rushed to the viewport, his heart racing. Through the darkness of space, he saw it. A ship unlike anything in human records. It was sleek, almost organic in design, with patterns of light flowing across its hull like waves in an ocean. His communications panel lit up with an incoming transmission. The voice that came through was melodious but clearly artificial, some kind of translation system. Terran Vessel Horizon, this is Captain Lyra of the Axaran ship Starweaver. We received your distress signal. Prepare for rescue operations. Reed could hardly believe it. The Axarans were almost a myth in human space, an advanced species that avoided contact with lesser civilizations. Yet here they were. Starweaver, this is Captain Reed. Thank you for responding. Be advised, my ship's docking systems are damaged. Understood, Captain Reed. We will extend our bioadaptive docking tunnel. Please stand by. Reed watched in amazement as a section of the alien ship transformed, extending a glowing tube-like structure toward the horizon. It reminded him of a sea anemone, beautiful and slightly unnerving at the same time. Warning, his computer announced. Unknown technology attempting to interface with airlock systems. Allow it, Reed commanded. He grabbed his emergency kit and tablet with research data. Whatever happened next would be historic. The first documented human Axaran contact. The docking tunnel attached itself to his ship's airlock with a gentle thud. Reed heard the hiss of atmospheric equalization, followed by a series of soft clicks as the systems synchronized. Airlock secure, announced both ships simultaneously. Reed took a deep breath and opened his side of the airlock. The tunnel before him pulsed with soft light, its walls seeming almost alive. He stepped forward carefully, noting how the surface adjusted to his weight. At the other end, the Axaran airlock opened. Reed found himself face to face with Captain Lyra, and for a moment both leaders stood silent, studying each other. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with silvery skin that glowed with shifting patterns of light. Her large eyes had multiple pupils, and her 4-fingered hands were long and elegant. She wore what looked like a flowing uniform that changed colors subtly as she moved. Captain Reed, she said, her translator converting her musical language into English. Welcome aboard the Starweaver. Reed straightened to attention and offered a formal bow. Captain Lyra, thank you for the rescue. I apologize for bringing your ship so far off course. A wave of brighter light passed across Lyra's skin, an expression Reed couldn't interpret. Behind her, other Axarans watched with what seemed like curiosity or concern. Your composure is unexpected, Lyra said. Most species panic in such situations. Reed managed a small smile. Panic rarely improves a bad situation, Captain. Besides, I was busy documenting some unusual radiation patterns. If I didn't survive, I wanted to make sure the data would be useful to others. This statement caused a ripple of light patterns among all the Axarans present. Lyra's first officer stepped forward, speaking rapidly in their native language. She responded with a series of musical tones that seemed to quiet his concerns. You were conducting research, Lyra asked, even after your life support began failing. Of course, every moment of observation is valuable, even if they're your last moments. Reed held up his tablet. Would your science team be interested in reviewing the data? I noticed some patterns that might be significant. Another wave of light rippled through the Axaran crew. Lyra's skin brightened noticeably as she turned to her officers. Perhaps we were too quick to judge humans as primitive, she said, not bothering to activate her translator. But Reed didn't need to understand the words to recognize approval when he heard it. First, Lyra said, switching back to translated speech, let our medical team check your condition. Then, Captain Reed, I believe we have much to discuss. 3 days had passed since the rescue, And the Starweaver continued its journey toward the nearest space station. Captain Reed sat in what the Axorans called their knowledge chamber, a room with walls that displayed any information requested. Currently, he was studying their star charts while Captain Lyra reviewed his radiation data. "Your research methods are unusual," Lyra said, her skin glowing with interest. "We would never send a solo researcher into unexplored space." Reed looked up from the star chart. "Sometimes the best discoveries come from taking risks." "Why do you always work in large groups?" "Safety, efficiency, tradition." Lyra's skin rippled. "Our people believe that wisdom comes from collective thinking." "But you broke with tradition to rescue me," Reed pointed out. "That was a solo decision." The patterns on Lyra's skin shifted to deeper colors. "Perhaps I'm becoming contaminated by human unpredictability," she said, with what Reed was learning to recognize as Axoran humor. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of food. An Axoran crew member brought in 2 trays, one with human-safe food synthesized by their machines, and another with the glowing crystals that Axorans consumed. "I'm curious," Reed said, watching Lyra absorb energy from her crystals. "Your species evolved to be pure energy, yet you developed space travel before humans who had to fight for every meal. Wouldn't easy access to food make you less driven to explore?" Lyra's skin flashed with surprise. "An interesting observation. We explored space, seeking new energy patterns to consume. Different stars create different crystal formations." She gestured to her meal. "These came from a red giant's radiation belt." "So we both explored for resources," Reed nodded. "Just different kinds." As they ate, they continued sharing knowledge. Reed explained human family structures, while Lyra described how young Axorans spent their first 50 years in communal learning pods. Reed talked about Earth's oceans, and Lyra spoke of her people's atmospheric cities. "Your species adapts so quickly," Lyra noted, watching Reed easily operate an Axoran data panel. "Most races take months to learn our technology. Humans had to adapt to survive," Reed explained. "We weren't the strongest or fastest on our planet, so we learned to understand and use everything around us." "Yet your ships still used physical buttons and switches," Lyra observed. "Our controls respond to thought and light patterns." Reed smiled. "Sometimes simple is better. Buttons don't get confused if you're tired or stressed. They do exactly what they're designed to do, every time. Like following old emergency frequencies." Lyra's skin pulsed with amusement. "Exactly. New isn't always better. It's about using what works best for each situation." Their discussion was interrupted by First Officer Tren entering the chamber. His skin displayed concerned patterns as he approached Lyra. "Captain, the High Command has sent another message. They're displeased with our current course of action." Lyra's glow dimmed slightly. "Tell them I will respond shortly." After Tren left, she turned to Reed. "My superiors believe this interaction is dangerous. They think humans are too unpredictable, too quick to act without considering consequences." Reed considered this. "They're not entirely wrong. Humans can be rash. But that same trait lets us find solutions others might miss. Sometimes you need to act quickly, even without perfect information. Like deciding to rescue a stranded alien." Lyra's skin brightened again. "Or choosing to trust your rescuer," Reed replied. "Speaking of trust, would you like to learn how to play chess? It's a human game of strategy. Might help you understand how we think." Lyra's skin rippled with curiosity. "And in exchange, I could teach you about light pattern communication. It might help you understand why we value harmony so much." As Reed set up a portable chessboard he found in his emergency kit, he reflected on how strange life was. A week ago, he'd been facing death alone in space. Now he was about to play chess with an alien captain, while her superiors probably planned ways to stop their cultures from mixing. "Your move first," he said, gesturing to the board. "Since you saved my life." Lyra studied the pieces, her skin glowing with concentration. Sometimes, she said quietly, saving a life can save entire civilizations from their own prejudices. The Starweaver glided smoothly through space when its warning systems suddenly blared to life. Reed was in the middle of another cultural exchange session with Lyra when red lights flooded the ship's corridors. Multiple ships detected. The ship's AI announced, unknown signatures approaching at attack speed. Lyra's skin flashed with alarm patterns. Pirates, she said grimly. Show tactical display. The knowledge chamber's walls lit up with a 3D map showing 5 ships surrounding them. They were ugly, cobbled-together vessels that bore the marks of multiple species technologies. Your advanced shields should handle them, right? Reed asked, remembering how impressive Axaran technology was. Normally, yes. Lyra's skin pulsed with worry. But we're running at reduced power after extending our rescue systems to your ship. We didn't have time to fully recharge. The first blast hit the Starweaver, making the ship shudder. The pirates had positioned themselves perfectly. A standard ambush formation that Reed recognized from human space. They're using stolen Axaran weapons, Trent reported, rushing into the chamber. Our shields are failing. They know exactly where to hit us. Another blast rocked the ship. The lights flickered, and several control panels went dark. Reed watched the tactical display, his mind racing. The pirates were using advanced technology, but their tactics were basic. Captain Lyra, Reed spoke up. Your ships rely on energy weapons and light-based shields, correct? Yes, but our weapons are offline, and shields are at 20%. Her skin had turned a dark, worry purple. What about physical weapons? Simple projectiles. Lyra's multiple pupils widened. We haven't used physical weapons in centuries. They're too primitive. Reed smiled. Sometimes primitive is exactly what you need. He pointed to the tactical display. Your cargo bay. Can it be depressurized? Yes, but... And those maintenance drones I saw yesterday. The ones that repair hull damage. How many do you have? 23, Trent answered, his skin showing confusion patterns. But they're not weapons. They are now. Reed's fingers flew over the control panel, drawing a quick diagram. These pirates expect energy weapons. They're not prepared for physical impacts. Here's what we do. 10 minutes later, the pirates were closing in for their final attack. The Starweaver appeared helpless, its shields almost gone, its weapons silent. Now, Reed commanded. The cargo bay doors burst open. 23 maintenance drones shot out, each carrying pieces of spare hull plating. The drones spun rapidly, turning the metal plates into deadly projectiles. At the same time, the Starweaver's remaining power surged into a single, focused shield pulse. The pirates, expecting energy weapons, had their shields optimized for energy absorption. They weren't ready for simple metal plates moving at high speed. The improvised projectiles tore through their ships, causing chaos. The shield pulse, timed perfectly, pushed them further into disorder. Hard turn, Reed shouted. Use their formation against them. Lyra didn't hesitate. The Starweaver pivoted sharply, causing 2 pirate ships to crash into each other as they tried to dodge the metal debris. The remaining ships, their formations broken, began to retreat. Send the drones after them, Reed suggested. Not to attack, but to look threatening. Pirates are cowards when their plans fall apart. The maintenance drones swarmed toward the retreating ships, their metal plates glinting in the starlight. The pirates fled at full speed, leaving behind a field of floating debris. The knowledge chamber was silent for a moment. Then Lyra's skin erupted in bright patterns of amazement. You turned repair drones and spare parts into weapons, she said, studying Reed with new respect. How did you think of that? Human history is full of people turning simple tools into unexpected solutions, Reed explained. Sometimes the best answer isn't the most advanced one. Trent's skin showed embarrassment patterns. We were so focused on our failed technology, we couldn't see other options. Perhaps Perhaps humans aren't as primitive as we thought. Not primitive, Lyra corrected, her skin glowing warmly. Just different. And today, difference saved our lives. Reed watched as the maintenance drones returned to the ship, collecting the scattered hull plates. Your technology is incredible, he said. But technology is just a tool. It's how you think about using it that matters. The Starweaver's systems began to recover, lights returning to normal. But something else had changed too. The way the Axaran crew looked at their human guest. Where there had been tolerance, now there was respect. Where there had been curiosity, now there was admiration. Well, Lyra said, her skin showing patterns Reed had never seen before, I believe the High Command will be very interested in my report about this incident. The space station loomed ahead, a massive structure where different species met for trade and diplomacy. Reed stood at the viewing window of the Starweaver, watching it grow larger. After 2 weeks aboard the Axaran ship, he knew this journey was coming to an end. Your transport ship will arrive in 6 hours, Lyra said, approaching from behind. Her skin glowed with subtle patterns that Reed had learned to recognize as sadness. They'll take you back to human space. Reed nodded quietly. He had already packed his few belongings and prepared his research data for transfer. The High Command had arranged everything, eager to conclude this unexpected contact between their species. You know, Lyra continued, her skin shifting to a thoughtful pattern, my crew has been different since the pirate attack. They keep asking what humans would do in various situations. Different isn't always bad, Reed replied, turning to face her. Your people taught me just as much. I never knew shields could be tuned to emotions until your engineers explained it. Their conversation was interrupted by First Officer Tren, who entered with an urgent expression, his skin flashing with excitement patterns. Captain, the High Command has responded to your report about the pirate incident. They're actually impressed. His skin pulsed with disbelief. They say the creative use of simple tools shows unexpected wisdom. Lyra's skin brightened. Did they read my proposal? Yes. Tren's skin flickered nervously. They're leaving the decision to your discretion, given your first-hand experience. Reed looked between them, confused. What proposal? Lyra turned to him, her skin now glowing with formal patterns. Captain Reed, I've proposed that you join the Starweaver's crew as our tactical advisor. The pirate incident proved that combining our perspectives makes us stronger. Reed stared at her in shock. But your people have avoided human contact for centuries. The High Command knows we must adapt. Lyra interrupted. Pirates are using stolen technology from multiple species. Our traditional approaches aren't enough anymore. We need new ways of thinking. It would be unprecedented, Tren added, his skin showing acceptance patterns that would have been impossible 2 weeks ago. But after watching you work, the crew supports the idea. Reed walked to the knowledge chamber's wall display, looking at the star charts he'd been studying. What about my research? My obligations to the Human Space Agency? We can continue your radiation studies, Lyra said. The Starweaver has better sensors than your ship had. And we've already sent a message to your agency through proper channels. They're excited about the possibility of scientific exchange. Reed thought about his life before the solar flare. Solar research had been rewarding, but lonely. Here on the Starweaver, every day brought new discoveries, not just about space, but about life itself. The choice must be yours, Lyra added softly. We can complete our journey to the space station, and you can return to your normal life. Or I can stay and help build a bridge between our species. Reed finished. He turned back to them, smiling. You know, on Earth, there's an old saying. Sometimes the best families are the ones we choose. Lyra's skin rippled with joy patterns. Is that a yes? It's a yes. Reed nodded. But I have one condition. Name it, Lyra said. We need to establish a proper cultural exchange program. Not just me learning from you, but sharing knowledge both ways. There's too much both our species could learn from each other. Tren's skin flashed with amusement. Always the researcher, aren't you? Of course, Reed grinned. It's why you like having me around. Lyra moved to the ship's communication panel. I'll inform the High Command of your acceptance. They'll want to establish proper protocols. Let them, Reed said. But tell them this isn't just about protocols and procedures. It's about trust, friendship, and the understanding that different doesn't mean inferior. As Lyra composed her message, Reed looked back at the space station. 6 hours until his transport would arrive. A transport he wouldn't be taking. Instead, he would be starting a new chapter, not just in his life, but in the history of human-Axaran relations. Welcome to the crew, Tren said formally, his skin glowing with welcome patterns. Officially this time. Thank you, Reed replied. Now, shall we talk about installing some manual backup controls, just in case? 6 months had passed since Reed joined the Starweaver's crew. The ship glided through a newly discovered nebula, its sensors recording data that would excite scientists of both species. On the bridge, Reed stood beside Captain Lyra, watching the swirling colors through the main viewport. The radiation patterns here match what I was studying when my ship broke down, Reed noted, checking his tablet. Funny how life comes full circle. Lyra's skin sparkled with amusement patterns. Except this time, you have a proper ship and crew to help with the research. The bridge had changed in subtle ways over the past months. Traditional Axaran light controls now sat beside physical backup switches, Reed's design. The tactical display showed both energy readings and physical object trajectories, combining both species' approach to space navigation. Captain, called out the sensor officer, her skin pulsing with excitement. We're detecting unusual energy formations in the nebula, similar to the crystals we use for food, but with a different signature. New energy sources. Lyra turned to Reed. What's the human perspective on this? Reed studied the readings. These patterns remind me of Earth's coral reefs, complex structures that support diverse life. Maybe this nebula is a feeding ground for space-dwelling creatures we haven't discovered yet. The past months had taught both species the value of combining their viewpoints. Where Axarans sought energy patterns, humans saw practical applications. Where humans saw resources, Axarans saw delicate balances to preserve. Message from the High Command. Tren announced from his station, his skin showing pride patterns. Our cultural exchange program has been approved for expansion. 3 more human scientists will be joining other Axaran ships. Reed smiled. His presence on the Starweaver had sparked a quiet revolution in both societies. The High Command had been impressed by the successful mixing of technologies and perspectives. Human space agencies were eager to learn about Axaran energy manipulation. Both species were growing, learning from each other. We should celebrate, Lyra declared. Reed, would you like to demonstrate that human tradition? What did you call it? A toast, Reed laughed. Though we'll have to use energy crystals for you and juice for me. The bridge crew gathered around as Reed raised his glass. 6 months ago, some of them had been skeptical of a human officer. Now they were family. To new discoveries, Reed began. And new friendships, Lyra added, her skin glowing warmly. And to the day a broken ship brought our species together, Tren finished, surprising everyone with his sentiment. As they celebrated, the ship's sensors continued mapping the nebula. Reed looked at the data and saw not just scientific readings, but a symbol of what their species could achieve together. The Axarans' advanced technology combined with human intuition and creativity was opening up new frontiers in space exploration. What's our next mission? Reed asked, returning to his station. Lyra's skin displayed exciting planning patterns. The High Command wants us to explore the galaxy's outer rim. No ship has gone that far before. No single species ship, Reed corrected. But we're not a single species anymore, are we? The bridge crew's skin glowed in agreement. The Starweaver had become something unique, a place where 2 different species worked as one, each making the other stronger. Setting course for the outer rim, the navigator announced. "Read," Lyra said, her skin showing the deep trust patterns that had developed between them. "Would you like to give the order?" Reed stood at attention, feeling the weight of the moment. 6 months ago, he had been a solo researcher facing death in space. Now he was helping to forge a path forward for both their peoples. "Starweaver," he commanded, "take us into the unknown." The ship's engines hummed to life, a perfect blend of Axaran energy tech and human engineering principles. As they accelerated toward their next adventure, Reed thought about all the possibilities ahead. New discoveries waited in the vastness of space, but the greatest discovery had already been made: that different species could become stronger together than they ever were apart. The Starweaver streaked into faster-than-light travel, carrying its mixed crew toward whatever mysteries waited in the outer rim. It was no longer just a ship. It was a bridge between civilizations, a symbol of what could be achieved when prejudice gave way to understanding. And it had all started with a distress signal and a captain who dared to answer it.